It's been a while since I made the last one of these. A bunch happened. I went on a trip to New York. I got sick with COVID, and my record player broke. So, record player's been repaired. I've recovered from COVID. Back from New York. Finished with the Christmas holiday, the whole nine. So, I'm gonna be going through like very, very late November, like last second arrivals after I made my last video, all the way up to late January when I'm filming this video. So, let's go over some additions. A big one that I want to get out of the way early is this. So this is the Portal 2 soundtrack pressed by Mondo. So this is the box that it came in with, this cool little strap on the outside. The box design is really cool here. As you fold this thing out, you get the different record sleeves and all this different art. And you pull it out to sort of be more or less the design of a core from the game. So those who are familiar with me know that I've spent too much time with this game. I know too much about this game, and so I had to pick this up. It sold out really quickly, and of course immediately ended up on the secondhand market for way more money than people should have to pay for this. Here are all the different colors of the discs, different blues, a yellow, a neon purple and green. So I'm not absolutely in love with the colors of these different LPs, but I think it is pretty neat. I think most people would have liked that it be more stylistically consistent with the game, especially given how cool the box looked. It looked very rugged and similar to sort of the aesthetic of Portal 2, which is run down, lots of growth, natural growth, especially in the first leg of the game. And I think the very sanitary look of these discs, and in addition, the fact that they're not all that relevant to the game in any sort of way. This isn't the blue or orange Portal. This isn't the dark blue, light blue, or the yellow and orange, or the yellow and red from the co-op campaign or anything like that. It seems like a bit of a missed opportunity, or at least maybe some cool designs that evoked more of what the game was like, similar to what I think the box did. So this package gave me quite a scare. It was marked as delivered to my mailbox. Checked my mailbox, it was most certainly not there. I went tracking down, I went to different USPS stores. I went to one, they said, I'll go to another. I went to another, they could say go to another. I got sent down the rabbit hole. And then eventually I find out that the guy just was concerned that it wouldn't fit my mailbox. Totally fair. Even though we have those like communal, larger mail delivery areas, he just thought, which is fair. And so he gave it over to the head office of my apartment, who of course didn't bother to let me know, email, phone, anything. So eventually I did find it, but I definitely was scared that this very expensive package that sold out very quickly would not arrive at my apartment. Now for some arrivals that came late in November. This is the first of those. This is The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones. My friend put me onto this album. It is so good. This album is so good. I had an obsessive listening spree to this album a few months back. I'm still listening to it very often. It is so good. Particularly like the first 4 songs on this album are just like, that run of 4 songs is some of like the most consistently good music out there. So yeah, that's Phil's more modern project, Lake Erie, and so this was put back out on Bandcamp, and I picked it up, and I'm very happy with it. It's a nice presentation, it sounds good, no complaints. Next is a collaborative album between The Alchemist and Currency. This is Continuance. This is Turntable Labs exclusive. So I got this one in time for the last video, but there was a real bad scratch on it that was a scratch on the album that was impacting a much more quiet portion of the record, and it was really noticeable and very off time, and it was very distracting, so I reached out to their support, and they were nice enough. I did have to send mine back, which a little annoying, but I got a replacement, sounds much better, so this is a cool one. Shallow, All Becomes Okay. This is one of those sort of EDM dance music, quieter, poppier albums, or EPs, I should say, that came out in a very like pivotal time for me, like music-wise. I was listening to all sorts of very similar artists. Casbo, for example, I showed off earlier. I have his debut album as well. And so this is such a good EP, a good solid project, just banger after banger after banger, of just very catchy, soft pop music, just beautiful atmosphere, beautiful sounds, layering, texturing, and everything. And so when I saw this anniversary pressing, this sort of on this pink vinyl, I said, yeah, I'm grabbing it. Grabbed it, no regrets. It's even though it's an EP, it's not a 45 or anything, but it still sounds fantastic, and I've played this like a lot so far. So I've got some singles to talk about. This is Loretta, one of the most popular singles by Ginger Root. I got to see Ginger Root live in concert, opening up for Hippocampus. I'd intended to see him again on a smaller tour he did, but it unfortunately conflicted. Like, I bought the tickets and everything, but I just couldn't make it. I was very sad about that. But his music is fantastic. I fell in love with it when I saw him live. He's very funny. Did a lot of bits and sketches throughout the whole thing. It was great. He made a comment about vinyl being out of stock for his back catalog on the tour, and it is. So I've been listening to a lot of his back catalog as well. Stuff like City Slicker. I would love to get copies of those eventually, but they're all sold out, man. So I picked this up. It's like a Japanese import single, Loretta. It has a Japanese version, I believe, as well as the traditional English version. So this is a really cool piece. I'm glad to have this. The next is Everything Goes On by Porter Robinson. It's like a collaborative single with the League of Legends team. I haven't played League of Legends in years, and I'm not a huge fan of them or the company behind them, but this was a really cool song, very catchy. It's sort of a picture disc. It came with Everything Goes On and then the Star Guardian variant of Everything Goes On. Maybe I wasn't listening critically enough, but honestly, I could not tell the difference when I flipped this single over. But it's a cool little single. I like the song, I like Porter Robinson, as you'll see coming up. And yeah, I just decided to pick it up. It was too expensive. It took like 8 months to ship, but oh well. Next is Worlds by Porter Robinson. Apparently this one's just really hard to get. I saw that like Barnes & Noble restocked like 5 or 6 of these or something, and I saw the notification on it and I just picked it up. They might be planning like a big repress of this or something. I think they should. I think everybody should be able to get this. I was looking at like an anniversary package that got released a few years ago, and that's so expensive, man. But I got this for like $40, I think, from Barnes & Noble, which is a lot for a 2 LP like this. But it sounds pretty good, and this is such a good album. This is like one of those quintessential dance albums that really just shaped the future of the genre, or shaped an entire subgenre that split off from that point. So I love this record. I'm glad to have it. And finishing off the Porter stuff, I've got his newest album, Nurture. So I ordered this from the site at the same time I ordered Everything Goes On. So even though it was ready to ship when I bought it, it didn't ship for like 8 months, which I get it for shipping, carbon emissions, pricing. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons that's valid, and I get it, but it is a little frustrating when the single takes so long to ship that this thing just gets delayed for like almost a year. Like, it was really bad. It got delayed for like half a year, I think, about like 6 months, maybe a lot longer, but I'm glad to have it. This is an album I didn't give much of a chance to until I was invited to see his concert. A friend was like, hey, I'm going. Anybody want to come? And I was like, sure, I love Porter. And I listened up on this thing to get ready, and it is really good. The sort of hyperpop movement going on right now is really not my thing. I absolutely despise especially pitched up vocals, really aggressive auto-tune. And some of that makes its way onto this album, but I think it's done more tastefully and executed better than a lot of other artists who are doing a very similar thing. And I think this record came out around the time that trend was really starting. So I would by no means call this a hyperpop record, but I would say it's definitely influenced by that sound. But all in all, really good record. So shortly after Christmas, my family came and visited me downtown. They took the train down. We were going to get lunch at a place nearby Waterloo, and we just sort of decided, because the wait was like 35-40 minutes, that we would just go into the record store for a little while, my dad and I. And so these are some things I picked up while I was there. So the first is Genesis Live at Nebworth. This has Mama and then Turn It On Again medley, which is like Turn It On Again mixed with a bunch of other sort of pop music from the time, so it's sort of the Genesis rendition of it. This sounds good. It's a 45 RPM. This concert is pretty famous from my understanding, and it definitely sounds good. The 2 Genesis tracks on here. I would say the medley wasn't like offensive or anything, but I also, I think this was like $15, $16 or something. For 2 Genesis tracks and an interesting medley, I don't know if it's worth it, but I picked it up. Next is another copy of Invisible Touch. I picked this up in Philly, and this version was even cheaper, I think, and came with the original hype sticker on it, so I decided to pick it up. I'm probably gonna A-B these. I've listened to it and it sounds good. It's that like very late 80s-ish, like cheap, flimsy vinyl, but it sounds pretty good. And I'm probably at some point going to A-B this and the other version I have. They're very, very similar presses. But I think I would like to keep this one and probably just sell the other because I think this, like, presentation-wise, is a little nicer, so that's why I picked it up. The Alan Parsons Project, iRobot. This is one that I remember the cover, seeing it every once in a while. And my dad likes this, and so I was like, hey, it's in the used New Arrivals bin. I'll pick it up for a couple bucks. I did check, but I didn't check. I didn't do a critical enough check of the quality or of the condition of the record. It is really badly damaged on the first side, borderline unplayable for like 2 of the songs on here. But this is a good project. I enjoyed listening to it. I would pick it up again, but not this particular copy. Weezer, self-titled Blue Album. My friend group and I do a yearly Secret Santa, and this year my buddy Anthony got me, and he got me his favorite album. I don't know if this is actually his favorite album, but Weezer is certainly his favorite band, and we always just poke fun at each other over music stuff. He's like aware of the fact that most people have very ironic and negative sentiments around Weezer, myself included, but he loves them. And actually, so this was like an ironic gift. He got me 2 other gifts that were both great. But this was definitely like a gag gift in his eyes, but I actually really do appreciate this. Because, I've seen people ask before, like, oh, my buddy's interested in vinyl, like, what album should I get him, blah, 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 blah. And I heard good advice that I think I agree with, like, completely. Get them something that you would want to listen to, because it's memorable, right? Like, when I look at this, I'm always going to remember that Anthony got me this project to mess with me. But it is like one of Weezer's better projects. It's not a bad album. I've never gotten around to really liking Weezer. I've given them a couple tries. Listened to, maybe, I don't know, 35 of their songs. I've listened to this, Pinkerton, all the singles from the era that the hardcore fans are kind of on. I've listened to some of the modern stuff, White Album, OK Human. They're not for me. They have this corny quality to them that I just have never been able to get into. But I'm still happy that my buddy got me a record that he likes. Even if it was ironic, it's still cool. Kaytranada, this is like the dual-sided single, Nothing Like You and Chances. It also has It Was Meant to Be on here. These are all instrumentals. Man, these are 33 RPM. This is a 33 RPM single. And especially the Dead Wax on the side with only one song is just massive. Like, they could have definitely made this like a 45 RPM, or at least thrown in like the vocal version of Chances, which in my opinion is like the better version. I know Kaytranada has like a pretty shifty opinion on the value of his music versus the artists who appear on it / people using his instrumentals as platforms for their vocals without consent, obviously, which is totally his opinion to have, and I respect it and agree with it. But Chances in particular, man, that is my favorite Kaytranada song. The instrumental is insane, and I love it, and I could happily listen to the instrumental, but the vocal on top of that is also so good and fits so well that it feels like a bit of a crime that it's not on here. And it's also, this version that I got is pretty warped, like pretty badly. The cardboard and everything is pretty badly damaged, which I'm not a huge fan of. The seller I bought this from on Discogs was maybe a little liberal with their grading on this, but all in all, I love Kaytranada. I showed 99.9% in my last video, and Chances is my favorite song from him, so I just wanted to pick this up. So my buddy was kind enough to let me stay at his place overnight, leading out to my trip to New York. I flew out of the Houston airport rather than the Austin airport because it was cheaper. It made more sense. I didn't have to deal with connecting flights or anything. So appreciate you for that. Thank you. And while I was there, I spent most of my day at the Johnson Space Center down in Houston. The Houston Space Center, spent like 6 hours there in the morning. But then I stopped by a couple record stores on my way to his place. So I picked up some stuff. First is Swimmer by Tennis. Tennis is so good, man. I listened to the main single off this track, Runner, a lot. It was like a song that was stuck in my head for weeks, a while back, and eventually I finally gave this whole album a try, and now I've been listening to their back catalog, listening to the new singles. I have tickets to their live tour coming up, so I love this band. If you like pop music with like maybe a bit of an 80s touch to it, man, check this stuff out. It's so good, so good. Yeah, this is like a no skips album for me. While in Houston, I also found more of these direct metal master Rush releases. So Power Windows, which funny enough, the first record store I went to, I found it was like some random import. I think it was like a German import or something of this record, being priced at like $110, and it's just, man, I love Rush stuff, but their stuff is not cheap. Like, it is just used Rush as a pain. I complete like my entire Genesis collection, like a couple of trips out there. Like, everybody's got Genesis stuff, but Rush stuff is so hard to come by. Maybe it's because they're a Canadian band. Maybe it's because they were way less popular. Like, they had less records pressed, is my guess. Man, it is tough. Maybe there's just a lot of fans that buy up all their stuff, but I found these. So this is the QRP Power Windows, and this is the direct metal Hemispheres. So big fan of these two albums. I'm a big fan of everything Rush has ever done. 80s era, 70s era, 90s era, 2000s, everything. So more to add to the Rush collection, and I should have some more Rush stuff coming soon. I just made a deal with a guy for some Rush stuff. I probably overpaid for it, but I want to get more Rush stuff, because my Rush to other artists ratio is not as overwhelmingly Rush as I would like it to be. So that does it for the Houston records that I got on my way to New York. The only real record shop I went to and bought stuff from in New York, I didn't have a lot of free time, was Rough Trade. So I bought a few things from them in the past, and I actually have an online order in this video that I'll go over. But I stopped by their store, and I got a couple records that I've wanted to get for a while, and I decided to just pull the plug on it. So Odyssey and Oracle, this had their little like Rough Trade essential sticker thing on the outside that I just cut out because why not? But I've been looking at this particular pressing for a while. It was one of those things that I almost pulled the trigger on because I thought maybe it would be exclusive. Like, I thought maybe it would be pretty limited and it would sell out pretty quickly, but thankfully it didn't. They had a good number of copies. I love the little strip on the side, similar to like an Obi. And I absolutely love this blue marble color to it. And this is one of those albums, man. This is from the 60s. It does not sound like a record that came out of the 60s. It was so ahead of its time, and I listened to this record a good bit, especially Time of the Season, man. That is one of the sexiest songs out there. What a track. So finally having this. Start Your Year Off Right. Yes. So Yes is a band I like a lot. I've done some of their stuff on this channel before, so this is Fragile. This is not my favorite Yes album. This is a really, really well-regarded Yes album, though. Roundabout is on this thing, which is why it's their most popular album. I think there's a lot of duds on here. There's a lot of like short little tracks that I think they had to give to the label to just sort of fill a quota or whatever. My dad is a bit of a Yes historian. He's told me stories about the band switching over their roster every few years and whatnot. So I think this was after a roster flip around. But it is sort of like the classic Yes lineup, and even though there's some filler tracks on here, the stuff that isn't filler it's so good. So this is one of those records that I saw had like a 2023 repress thing, and I never see this record used or anything, so I picked it up and it sounds great. Alright, so that was it for my New York trip. The next two records I bought on Rough Trade. They had a big sale on records, so it was close to 50% off on both of these, if not 50% off on both of these. So these are records that I didn't need, but for the price I couldn't say no. So the first is Animals as Leaders, Parisia. I love Animals as Leaders. So I've showed off my Animals as Leaders Live 2017 record, which is kind of like a best of compilation almost, but with their amazing live play. I cannot say enough good things about live albums. I wish more bands would do live albums. It seems like it's like a dead art these days. Nobody wants to do them anymore, but I absolutely love a good live album. I guess some bands just aren't as good live anymore, or maybe the ROI is poor, maybe it's a licensing. I don't know. All I know is I love live albums. This is not a live album. This is their newest album. The color doesn't do much for me, this neon orange, but they put out a lot of variants of this thing, and I never pulled the trigger on any of them. But this was, I think it was $15. And so I said, all right, screw it. Let's give it a listen. It doesn't sound amazing. I like the record. It's not my favorite of theirs. It's probably my least favorite in the last 3 or so they've put out. And this pressing in particular doesn't sound amazing. I think it's pretty quiet, but the mastering on this doesn't do it for me. It felt a little compressed, a little lacking in dynamics. I don't know. I'll have to give it more listens, but all in all, I probably wouldn't have done this, but it was like $15, and I love this band. So the other album I picked up for 50% off is this anniversary edition of John Hopkins' Opalescent. This is not my favorite album of his, but it was a cool like anniversary pressing, and this is like it's a technically less impressive record to me. It's not as interesting, it's not as layered, it's not as intricate. I did a video where I talked about Singularity. It was in one of my other collection videos where I picked up that album, and that to me is like his peak in terms of creativity and sound design and layering. I haven't given his newer stuff enough listens though, but at the time that album came out, I was listening to a lot of his older stuff as well, and this was never my favorite. But again, it was 50% off, and I thought, why not? Let's grab it. And finally, Tycho Dive. This is like the quintessential record of this sort of pseudo lo-fi, lo-fi probably applicable, but this mixture of like ambient and very relaxed grooves, just beautiful, beautiful soundscapes. This is a record that people who don't listen to music to listen to. Like, in a sense that like somebody doesn't have to be a big music fan to have heard this album or to listen to it and love this album. It's so good, it's so genre defining, and this was like I think a 10-year anniversary that just got repressed. There was a limited edition version that was blue that I would have bought if I didn't already buy this one, but this thing really just is gorgeous. And even though I think the blue one looked a little nicer for my tastes, I'm a blue over an orange kind of guy. It's beautiful and it works so well. This is what specialty pressings for records should look like. They should look like and they should evoke the same imagery visually that the album artwork does. It's beautiful. I can't say enough good things. I finally listened to this now that my turntable is fixed, and it sounds so good too. Like the mastering on this is really nice and punchy, and it sounds exactly as you would imagine. Very, very little surface noise. I've heard some people say mixed things about it. I ran a brush over it. It sounds fine for the most part, so love it. I've got some more stuff on the way. I've been trying to slow down. Like this was two and a half months or so of records there, and I like to think I've slowed down a little bit, but I've got some more stuff on the way, so hopefully there will be a new video soon. Thanks everybody for watching.